I'm going to paraphrase this a little bit. Become imitators of Elohim because this is how beloved children would act. Okay? He says, become then imitators of Elohim as beloved children. In other words, this is the way a beloved child would act. You would imitate your father. I've got children. My children are 11 and 12, actually 11 and 13, and soon to be 12 and 13. And my children, I promise you, imitate their mother and their father. How many times has somebody said to you, oh, you're just like your mother, you're just like your father in some way? We do. We imitate. And he's telling us here, become imitators like children do. The Torah is his explanation to us on what love looks like in loving him and loving each other. It's the description of what that should look like. How do you do this? Okay, because most people out there are not teaching the how, just telling you that you need to do it. You need to love your Elohim or love God with all your heart, blah, 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 and love your neighbors yourself. Okay, that's great. How? What does that look like? Well, he's telling us here, become imitators of Elohim. He says, walk in love as Messiah loved us. Oh, okay, so now we can see a little bit more of this walking in love. So then we have to have our definition of light. Well, we have a teaching that's called Yeshua, the light of the world. So we know Yeshua is light, okay? Because he already said here, I am the light of the world. We read that in John 8:12. But we also understand, as he goes through this comparison of light and darkness, we've done this quite a bit in other teachings, that walking as the world walks and as Hasatan would have us, that's called darkness. By the way, we were told that in Ephesians chapter 2. When we told that in chapter 2, when it says, look, you were, verse 1, it says, you were dead in trespass and sin in which you once walked according to the course of this world, according to the ruler of the authority, the heir of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. This is the darkness. So what's the opposite of the darkness? The light. What is the light? Torah. The teachings and instructions from above. You walk in the Torah. You're walking in the light. So he says, look, if you're going to imitate me, if you're going to follow me, you're going to walk in the Torah. You know, we're in a shameless society. Nobody cares what anybody thinks about anything they do. We need to actually be aware and be caring about what people think about us. Because after all, you claim to represent the King of the universe. And so people, I promise you, I absolutely promise you this. Once you tell people that you're Torah observant, once you start wearing your seat, once you start standing up and saying, I'm not going to, do Christmas or Easter, I'm not going to do Sunday, I'm not going to eat certain, whatever you do that lets somebody know that you're keeping things differently, they are now going to put the magnifying glass and spotlight on you. And they're going to look for every little bit of hypocrisy to accuse you of, to say, oh, you claim you're so righteous doing blah, 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 even if you never claimed that, just because they're going to think that because you want to keep Torah. Oh, you think you're so righteous, but I know that you do this, this, and this. Remember, as soon as you declare to be of Yahweh, you're an ambassador. You represent him. We're coming into the season where people will be posting all kinds of things about Christmas. And you'll see a lot of quote-unquote believers absolutely mocking and attacking anybody that would consider anything to do with that. Now, I will absolutely state for the record that there's nothing appropriate about celebrating that. However, there's also nothing appropriate about you attacking and mocking those that do. Because that's where they are. And that's kind of this foolish talk, I think, that's going on here in verse 2. Because now you're saying how great and wonderful and smart you are and how dumb everybody else is. Because you'll see people posting, what's wrong with you, you dumb, stupid Christians, blah, 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 blah. Wait a minute, you were them 5 minutes ago. Don't do that. Because they're not dumb and stupid. If anything, you're acting dumb and stupid by attacking them that way because you know that's not the reason they're there. They're there because Abba has not opened their eyes and ears just like you were before you understood it. There were people that would zing me first, and if I gave them one back, oh, they would get so mad. Because most people, as the old saying goes, they can dish it out, but they can't take it. But you know what? You shouldn't have to take it, and you shouldn't be dishing it out. Why should we have to deal with that? Because some of you would, we have this double standard. This is part of the hypocrisy that's in the heart, is that we all think I should be able to do it, but you can't. We're not thinking that consciously, but we do. But then when somebody does what we do, we get all upset. Wow, can you believe so-and-so did blah, blah, blah? And I say, why does that bother you? I watch you do that every day. And then they look at me like, how dare you? No, how dare you get all upset because somebody does something to you that you do to everybody else too? But that's our thing. We have a very incredible, we live a life of double standard. Heart issue. You were not being disobedient when you didn't know there was something to obey. But now that you do, which is what he's talking about, if you continue to walk as a Gentile, now you're being disobedient. So what's the spirit of disobedience? The insistence on maintaining your Gentile behaviors while claiming to be a believer. Stop claiming you're a believer, that you're following Yeshua, that you're imitating Yeshua, and doing things Yeshua never did. He never ate unclean. He never observed pagan holidays. He never did these things that you want to still do. This is where I'm very much at odds with a lot of these ministries out there that are quote-unquote Messianic or Hebrew roots that want to claim that somehow the Jew has to keep the Torah and the Gentile could keep doing anything they were doing. And yet somehow they're supposed to be one in Messiah. Really? That sounds like confusion in Messiah. All that I'm teaching you for this 55 parts goes back to Deuteronomy 8:2. You're going through a test. In Deuteronomy 8:2, it says that he's having you walk this out through your wilderness. In the case he was talking about Israel coming out of the desert, for the 40 years that they were in, but for whatever your life is, to test and to know and to prove whether it's your heart is to keep his commandments or not. Is it in your heart to obey? That's the whole point of this physical, fleshly life. And by the way, it's not going to work unless he humbles you first, which is why in Deuteronomy 8:2, it starts off with, to humble you, he led you through the wilderness so that you suffer and that you humbled and that you... Now, he says that you didn't starve and your clothes didn't wear out, but he led you through a place that was challenging so that he could have you be humble and he could see what was in your heart. When you changed from darkness to light, was it evident to anybody? Could anybody notice any difference? Did you stop doing some things that people knew you always used to do and start doing things you never used to do? Was there any evidence to people, if they looked at you, that you were different than you used to be? Isn't that what he's talking about here? He says, look, you were once A, you're now B. Stop acting like you're still A. You're not darkness anymore. You're not walking in the futility of your mind. You're not walking as the world walked when you were in the world. You know, I could ask the question, how many of you know somebody that knows something they need to do to change something in their life? They know exactly what to do, how to do it, and everything else, and they're not doing it. And every hand would go up because you know somebody, but you're forgetting to think about you. Because you're going to think about your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your coworker, your best friend. But realize you are that person first. You know things that you need to do and change and should be doing and changing right away that you're still not doing. Okay, so when we see reproof, we sometimes think it as the word of that you actually go and correct somebody. You tell them, you better not be doing, you shouldn't do. Don't you know how wrong that is? Blah, blah, blah. That's not what the word actually means here. Okay? It really has more of an understanding of proving to be wrong in some way, demonstrating that it's wrong, demonstrating that it doesn't work, demonstrating that it doesn't bear the right fruit. So this is not as Christian, and I know a lot of you know Christians that do this, and Messianics that do this. They think this is license to go and correct everybody. Haven't you all experienced that and seen that? That is not, in my opinion, what this is saying. It says, have no fellowship with the fruitless works of darkness, but rather reprove the fruitless works of darkness, not the people. Because the people aren't ready to hear that, or they wouldn't be doing the fruitless works of darkness. What you're going to do is prove them to be wrong. He says, so whatever is manifested or made apparent is light. See, when you're walking your life, all of you have this experience, I know to some degree. You were living life, you came to find out about the correct way to live life, you started making adjustments, and guess what you saw? Different fruit. And what was manifested? Light. It became, in other words, you were enlightened. It became obvious to you, it became apparent to you that, that's another way for manifest, it means to be made apparent. Okay, it was manifested or made apparent to you that, hey, this didn't really work and doesn't work. This other thing really does. By the way, that's how every parent works. Every parent tells their child, if you disobey, I'm going to punish you. That's wrath. If you behave really nicely, I'm going to reward you. Why do we think our heavenly Father, right, parent, the Creator is any different. He says everywhere in his word that's it. It's his good pleasure to give you rewards when you're a good and faithful servant, when you're a son of Elohim, living and doing what's well-pleasing in his sight. Sometimes you do things just because it's just plain stupid, because we just want what we want, and it's just dumb. And it's mindless. We're not thinking it through. He says, don't be mindless, stupid, ignorant, egotistic, rash, or unbelieving. He says, don't be that way. He says, understand what the desire of Yahweh is. Imitate Yeshua. Philippians 2:5, let this mind be in you that was also in Yeshua. In other words, the way he saw the world, the way he thought, the way he approached things, let that be in you. The only way to do that is to subjugate you. You're going to have to quiet your own voice in your own head. You're going to have to get off that self-sovereign throne.